Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to match number 2, still day number 4, the final day of the American Regional Qualifiers here. And in match number 1, we already saw Team United States qualify to the main stage, WEC 24. They're no longer on the road to Riyadh. They're technically already there. Depends on how you see it. And now we get to see the second team that gets to join them in Riyadh for WEC 24. Will it be Colombia or will it be Mexico? You guys are going to be accompanied by me, Mirko, and Naisu for this amazing match that we have. And I think we've already, been talking off cam as well as to our expectations for this matchup. And unlike match number 1, both of us are expecting this to go all the way, full 3 games.
Definitely has to. I don't know, because I guess for a lot of people, we got to see Colombia on stream. Mexico, we only got a glimpse of, I would say, in comparison, like from what we've seen from Colombia. So, but we do know that Mexico, they got swept by United States. And we know that they were pretty dominant up until that point. I believe they were undefeated as well. They were just going through the groups and everything else. And so for me, it's like, all right, we've seen a lot of Colombia. We know their play style. They like to even come up with some of their own, spice of picks and everything else, and some of the meta that they brought this. I could say that for almost all the teams here for the American Regional Qualifiers. Like, they had a very unique play style themselves within their teams, but also their drafting. Now for Colombia, I think against Mexico, I know you casted this, Mexico's game yesterday with Burger Kim. So we'll see. But again, adjustment-wise, what they learned, especially from their matchup against the United States.
Let's welcome Colombia first here with their lineup. Their official lineup here, we got John, YT, Delica, Eto, Salguero, Santiago, Astro, Agudelo, Jose, Prime, Marigod, Rodriguez. We have Fabian, Replic, Laguna, and Daniel, Abiscuti, Venasco. And what we've seen from Colombia was actually pretty impressive, right? We were able to get a 2-0 win against Ecuador on the very first day of the American Regional Qualifiers, and that was me and you too. So a little bit of throwback now as we get into another Colombia matchup. The only thing different is the fact that they are going to be going up against much tougher opponents, I would say. Mexico and United States, they were coming into the American Regional Qualifiers as favorites together, as to, who actually will make it out. And, most people predicted America, United States, and obviously Mexico to make it out. But unfortunately for them, or maybe fortunately, they were placed in the same group. So technically they don't have to face off against one another in the playoffs because they were in the same group. And Colombia, if they do want to qualify, if they do want to, show the world that Colombia is here in MLBB and can go up against the very best in MLBB, you're going to have to go through Mexico, and they have a fire lineup as well. So let's welcome them in here as well. Their lineup, officially, it's going to be Israel Ziggy Serrano, David Zoltra Reyes, Andres Rakpid Molina, Mauricio Pica Espino, and Eduardo Sirius Gastelum.
So as I'm looking at this lineup here, who stood out for you yesterday? Because I'm going to be real. I didn't get to catch that matchup yesterday when you and Burger Kim were casting it. So who did you guys think stood out here for Mexico?
For me, it's Pica and Zoltra, definitely. The way that they were able to play. And for Pica, as a playmaker, he's the XP lane. Even Rakpid, honestly, played really, really good. Very flexible too. Was able to utilize the Ruby flex into the gold lane, which we haven't seen a whole lot from the American Regional Qualifier.
It's and when we talk about that, like we just saw from this the recent game, we'll have to see if even for Colombia, I think Colombia has been a team too where they've done a minor switch in terms of like roles here and there. But I do recall, like we just saw, when we were just talking about in the previous matchup where that Sicilian had 100% win rate, doesn't anymore because of the previous match. But it was Abiscuti that also brought that to the table, made it work really well in their previous matches throughout the group stage. Again, if I recall correctly, Colombia was also, I think, undefeated up, throughout the groupstage. They had a very dominant performance here and there. And Replic as well. Like, how many times did Replic get the MVP throughout the group stages? He was also one of the ones that played a little more dynamic gold lane, for the most part. I think he's done very well in the Harith. I can't remember too if he's done the Ruby gold lane, but if Mexico does that too, they might, these two teams might be prioritizing a Ruby pick, for example, or a Zask, because Abiscuti is, also opts for that pick and has been very dominant in the mid lane too. So this is why I think it is going to be a 3-game series here as we end, the qualifiers, at least for us, because yeah, they're by this time, at this point, Colombia knows enough about Mexico, and I think vice versa, Mexico knows enough about Colombia, and they bring a very their play styles. All the teams, I would say, fit this meta right now so much. I mean, there was teams that spent so much time on the utility meta before, but I feel like this is almost, we're in this like, I wish I could give this. Is there a name for this meta right now, or is it just like assassin meta? Like, is that what people are just calling it, like the assassin meta? Because I feel like it's such a chaotic meta. It's such a battle, just like a battle meta. It's like you see team fights from the very beginning all the way throughout the entirety of the game. It's not like before where when you had the utility meta, some games literally nothing would happen for the first 5 minutes. 6 minutes, you know what I mean? Even when it came to the turtles, you just see like 2 tanky junglers battling off for it, but then no one, they get the retribution off, they back off.
Exactly.
So my point here being, between Mexico and Colombia both, just like a lot of the teams we've seen so far, they like to fight and they like to duke it out, and it comes down to almost just every single time we talk about how good a draft can be, but really it's the execution factor. And all these teams, even the United States, I would say, we have seen them make mistakes, and mistakes right now in this current setup, this current meta, can be severely punished. And sometimes you see games completely over because of the fact that they swing things around by punishing mistakes. So I think for Colombia and Mexico both, while we wait to see what the draft is going to be like for them as we jump into it, is what they prioritize first off, especially on blue side, as it's traditionally the higher win rate side. And then again, how many mistakes, like who makes the less mistakes? There's always this reference in my head because, I used to play American football, and it was always like the team with the less fouls, or the teams with the less mistakes, the team with the less fumbles, if you will. And that's kind of what it is here. Like even in esports, the team that makes the less mistakes will have the better execution and ultimately win. So it's going to be Colombia or Mexico here.
That's true. And Colombia do get the blue side. So we've been talking a whole lot about the blue side, how it's really, really good, especially if you get it, you can actually force out a lot of the respect bans for yourself so that you force out these prio picks to be left open. And I think Colombia have done exactly that. Good chip ban with the Valentina and the Hayabusa, fully respecting the members coming in from Mexico. But also, leaving out the Juicin, the Zosk to be up for grabs right now. For Mexico, they got to make a tough decision. Whether they want to go for a trade, right? Like leave the Juicin with the Zosk together, or bat it out and leave just one big prio pick open for Colombia. And I think for me, Zosk needs to go away. But they go for the Ruby ban instead, taking away a good flex potential away from Colombia. And now Zosk or the Juicin, those are usually the 2 picks that we get to see here as first pick. Usually it's the Roger too, but at this point I feel like with the Zosk open, it should just be the Zosk, and then Mexico can respond with a Juicin and a Roger together. So still very, very good responses, I would say, for Mexico in towards that Zosk pick.
All right, Zosk pick. Yeah, Jushin's open, so maybe Mexico just grabs this. This is almost like I don't want to say it's classic yet, but it is the matchup that we see a lot of times where like the Jushin's picked up because the Zask are there, and you can also, pick up the little Johnnies or the little aliens and throw them around. So maybe Roger Jushin, if they want to pick it up. They also could wait to pick it up in this next phase. So they get the Edith, the Roger, also quality picks. We've talked about this pretty extensively. The Roger is just kind of a safe go-to right now. Still flexible, gold lane or jungle. I think that mindset has shifted now, though, where at least for you, you're like, you know what, Roger, you do like it better in the gold lane currently. I know we like it in the jungle before, but I think, now in the gold lane, it does fit really well there, especially when you have an Edith on your side. Like there's enough tankiness to kind of help things out. And a lot of the times, if you just get the Earth Shatter alone, like not even, the onward over, but if you just get the Earth Shatter alone, it's enough setup potential that's very easy to pull off. That helps the Roger shine, whether you're peeling, whether you're setting up, and then the Roger can go from there. So what is the answer here from Colombia? It's going to be the Alpha and the Terizla. I like this. I like you cover your grounds for the XP lane. Very solid. Then you get an Alpha. That's what we expected too. Jushin was going to be the answer eventually through this first phase from Mexico. and they lock that in. So I think really when you look at this, it's a battle of that damage in the mid lane, the burst from the Zask, and then the utility from the Jushin. So eventually that utility, I don't know, do you feel like it falls off at some point from Jushin? Like, it's great early mid, but like late game, there's a little bit of a struggle there.
Yeah, I definitely think it actually falls off in the mid game, right? It really
Mid-game?
depends, because in the early game, usually you're always able to get a snowball on the Juicin. But if you aren't able to get that snowball, I think all the way from the mid game, you will see a little bit of a dip in power when it comes to that utility being as expensive as it was in the early game. And I think Colombia have gotten really good responses into the Juicin, like preemptive responses with the Terizla and the Alpha. Because the biggest problem for the Juicin is when people just start diving onto you, right? You're good if you can keep the space. If you can constantly just have good spacing up against the Alpha, up against these melee heroes or even ranged heroes, then you're always able to outplay them through throwing them back and forth, getting those stacks with Lantern Flare, and obviously displacing yourself with the Beacon. But if Colombia can lock her down, this is definitely going to be a big problem for Mexico. And I would say even when they want to go for the dive here with the Edith, with the Roger, if they want to, you know, force out a dive, Colombia have really good answers to it. With the Zask having Dominator's Descent, it's basically like a secondary health bar, right? You have double stun too, so a lot of utility too from Zask that you wouldn't usually expect from a hero like the Zask. You already deal so much damage overtime, DPS, and even burst. You wouldn't expect him to actually still have utility, but he has utility, and that's why he's so expensive to, you know, let go in this meta. But we'll see how Mexico try to play around that, because teams have been going up against the Zask through picking up the Valentina. That's one of the answers, by taking the little Johnny or the big Johnny for yourself too. Dominator's Descent. Faramis has been a solid answer too, but I think in this position, the Juicin just fits the best. But now they definitely need to get some more tanky boys or some bigger CC, you know, roamers to actually try to soak in that damage from Zaz, number one, but also try to CC the Zaz so he doesn't deal that much damage. And it's going to be the Claude ban here as well. So really, for Colombia, they're trying to force Mexico on a gold lane that will be a bit more vulnerable, like the Roger. I think they're at this point, they're trying to force the Roger to go in the gold lane for them to pick up a very short-ranged hero like the carry. But this time, I would say, pretty solid for Mexico. It's a solid response, despite the fact that Colombia, I think, are okay with the carry pick. I think it's okay for Mexico too. It comes down to an execution problem for both these teams on the carry, because Mexico have solid peel with the Juicin, with the Edith, and with their final pick, it'll most probably be another beefy hero to really soak in and, you know, just peel for the rest. And the two marksman composition with the Juicin is just really, really solid. You have amazing utility, and the damage department, where we're talking about, where it already kind of like falls off for the Juicin in the mid game, you won't really have that problem with two marksmen having with different damage variety, damage output variety. There's Roger physical. It's also physical for carry, but you get a little bit of that true damage.
Whoa, okay. You know, and so I'm wondering what this last pick from Mexico is going to be. Ixia and Kaja are great because you have pick-off potential, and this is pretty devastating. I mean, having this Ixia kind of the curveball now, right off the bat, you know, I just think of recent tournament MWI, the Savage that we got to see from Shinoa there. But so this time around, it is pretty glass cannon, of course, having an Ixia, but she's protected really well with this lineup from Colombia. And that last pick, of course, from Mexico to round that out a little bit more. So it's not just the Edith being that front damage. You get great initiation with the Yu Zhang pick here. And we'll see how this ends up working out. I like both lineups, honestly, but I think Colombia, I'm going to have to go with them a little bit more, just because I always like the risk that is Ixia. Like, she's literally probably one of the most risky gold lane options you could pick up, because she's just purely like a glass cannon, but she's very flashy, she's very great, and this could also work really well with the Kaja pickup. I'm wondering what kind of Kaja this is going to be, especially in terms of the emblem. We've seen a couple variations of that, but you already have so much good early damage, especially with an Alpha and a Zask, and then you have an Ixia for like later on to make those big plays, especially if a beacon is going to be used, the beacon and the flares and everything else from the Jushin. So I like it, man, but I'm going to say I like Colombia's lineup here.
Yeah, the problem with the draft definitely for the side of Mexico is the fact that there's going to be so much dive, and that is the way to peel for the Ixia. They're going to peel with aggression, with dive instead of peel. The normal convenient cover peel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's game number 1 for, once again, the second slot for America. Will it be Colombia? Will it be Mexico? We'll get to see who takes game number 1 first, because in the American regional qualifiers, you've seen a bit too many sweeps, and all has come through winning game 1 first. So momentum is a big factor when it comes to the American regional qualifiers. And again, I have to agree with Naisu. In the drafts, I like Colombia's draft better, but I can see many ways where Mexico can actually try to outplay with this composition. It's all about taking the fights a bit longer. They have a lot of good sustain in the mid lane, though.
Whoa, okay. That's a lot of damage already early on, as we were talking about. And, you know, as you were saying, I think even with this, man, it's just like, you have to kind of look at how these early rotations go, for one. But also, that's what I was wondering, too. Astro did go with the focusing mark emblem, and this is always what I like to see when Kanjas are drafted. I know some like to pick up a little more tanky emblems, if they will, or sometimes it's even the quantum charge, but I like the focusing mark, especially paired up with Replic on the Ixia here, because you're going for that, you know, that burst potential, trying to get that numbers advantage, because that's what it's all about. Whenever you have the Kanja, you're just instantly trying to get a numbers advantage before a big team fight or a skirmish happens, and hope that you get that pick off early on. And focusing mark does a perfect job at helping that. See them trying to get that extra XP to get these level 4s before the turtle breaks out. Pika already has to respect the damage coming out even from the shot, since all those level 4s coming online pretty much at this point. So Mexico, we'll go ahead and start up the turtle now. Colombia, how are they going to respond? It's going to reset, so they're in positioning. Astro doesn't have the level 4 yet. He doesn't have the Divine Judgment just yet.
Whoa.
So Dragon Form going to be used. Zoltra also going to find the target on the Demonic Descent, and now Turtle for the taking. It's going to be Primary God that secures the turtle, but are they going to win this fight? He's the first one to fall. It's first blood for Mexico. That might be all they get, but the objective goes to Colombia.
Great initiation coming in from Pika, man. Amazing play with the Black Dragon form earlier there, getting the 2-man Petrify, and really just outplaying the backline of Colombia before they can actually initiate onto Mexico. That's really what won the team fight over to Mexico, because again, for Colombia, they were very set in stone about just going for the neutral objective and then backing off there. With their composition and with Astro not hitting level 4 just yet, it gave Mexico a lot more ways to actually initiate and force it out. Just unfortunately for Zoltra, he wasn't able to get the onward over to anybody. Got the onward over to the Nightmaric Spawn. Very unfortunate stuff, but again, definitely understand what they were going for. It could have been way better for Mexico had he gotten that onward combo instead of just the Nightmaric Spawn getting knocked up there. But this goes to show you that in the early game, Mexico is not going to be losing out in a lot of the skirmishes. As long as they decide to engage first, as long as they're not the ones reacting to the plays, they have many ways to force out these big ultimates from Colombia to be used defensively. Like we saw earlier, the penalty zone was used in a way where it really didn't get the expected output out, right? Because usually you want to go for the penalty zone before any of the other members could initiate from the opposing team. And in that particular situation, the engage just happened first because of Pika, Black Dragon form. Massive resource.
Yeah, every time we see this, man, every time we see the Yuzhong picked up, the Dragon form is such a deterrent for a lot of teams to deal with, because it's like, once you see that, your instinct is just to run away, or at least like back off, because one thing in mind is definitely you don't want to get set up once that Petrify is going to be used, and then, you know, the rest of the team can follow through with that. Again, we already talked about Zoltra here with the Edith pick, and so that's something that Colombia kind of always has to deal with for now. Whoa, there's the flicker, Divine Judgment, perfect target. And that's what I'm talking about with the focusing mark. That little extra burst takes care of Ziggy here quickly. So now Colombia set their sights on their second turtle. Don't think they're going to be able to contest this at all. They're going to be zoned out a little bit too much. Kendo can't even get there. So turtle secured. The Hive clone's going to be dropped down. Kendo will be able to get out just barely. And now Zoltra going to be the focus. Pops the Primal Wrath, but will ultimately go down to Abyss Cutie. Colombia coming out big in that exchange.
Love this game already, man. It comes down literally to whoever engages first will win out in the skirmish, will win out in the neutral objective department. In turtle number 1, it was Mexico who won on the team fight, but again, Colombia were able to just keep it steady, securing the neutral objective and then backing away, only losing 1 member. And in the second turtle, with Divine Judgment, they forced the play onto Ziggy before anything happened, and then they went on to initiate first as well around the neutral objective, forcing Mexico into a tough spot and giving themselves a pretty good lead at the start of the game. With this kind of composition, this is a scary comp to give a lead like this, right? Yeah. Colombia have a composition that can snowball. They can scale too with the Ixia, with the Zosk, yes. But if they get a lead in the early game, and that's definitely what we're seeing here with Replic as well, already picking up a turret and also the gold crab on an Ixia, man, this is a tough spot for Mexico, because now for Pika, there's going to be definitely more tasks for him to complete in these skirmishes. Not only is he going to have to initiate, he's going to have to go into the Ixia.
Whew, right now, Beacon going to be used from Ziggy. I mean, it was a great response from Colombia to go ahead and stop that from happening. Taking a look at the items too, you can see this, right? Some of these first items falling into place. You also have this Thunder Belt already built on for Zoltra, so this is typical. You know, we see this really often now. The Corrosive Scythe is there for Rack, and now dealing with this, you know, how do you, if you're Mexico and you're playing to the tune of Colombia right now, they've gotten themselves a 2K gold lead ahead. You know, do you actually go into the turtle and contest this? Because you always have to be conscious of Astro here.
That's a good question, because for Mexico, it comes down to the targeting. If Ziggy can actually still space out, it's going to be good, but let's see.
Oh, there it is. Full Barrage going to be dropped down too. Dragon Form flying into the shots. Zoltra goes down. Rack going to be next. They're looking for more with the Spear of Alpha. They're going to find Kendo too. They pop the Retribution off. Ziggy trying to run, but Replic flickers forward. Looks to get the kill. It's Primary God that picks it up. Is it going to be a full team wipeout? Colombia takes everything from Mexico.
We were expecting a close game, but in game number 1, it's 7-1 to Colombia. Primary God on the Alpha, and obviously Delica. I'll have to give a massive props over to Delica, man, for actually just going in for the penalty zone. Again, adjusting from the mistake that they made in the first turtle, which is not engaging first, hesitating on the initiation. This time around, they did not hesitate. They saw Zoltra go in for the onward, and they instantly went to the back line, just gave Replic so much space for the Ixia to go for the full barrage, and when that hit, man, it hit like a truck. Pika wasn't able to dive as well because of the composition just already winning out of the skirmish overall. And that's what I said in the draft, where for Colombia, how they actually are going to peel for Replic isn't by staying by his side, isn't by, you know, corralling over him and covering him, going for CC whenever anyone would dive, but it's by diving towards the opposing team, making Mexico force their front lines to save their own back line.
Yeah, it's tough because when you take a look at that team fight on how it unfolded, there was no, winning moment for Mexico to really deal with, because on all fronts, even with Replic just setting up that full barrage, even in the Dragon form, like for Pika, you know, you're just kind of taking a ton of hits, you're dealing with it, and you can't even get in the position that you're looking for. And, you know, Zoltra, the one to set things up with the onward, like we've been talking about, when this Edith is usually that valuable pick for that, so far has not been able to accomplish that. You know, some of the items are falling into place for them too. You've got an endless battle now for Kendo, but, you know, I think even for him and this Roger, like, finding your positioning is so difficult. Looks like they're just going to trade a kill for the Lord, as Colombia is going to go for it. I'm not sure. It's going to take him a little bit longer to get that kill.
Wait.
And is he actually still alive? He survives. Kendo went for the kill under the turret, but that Body of Smith passive for Delica was enough to keep him alive alongside Abyss Cutie. Wow, Colombia punishing Mexico here.
Oh, that was catastrophic for Mexico. Losing not just the Lord, but also their jungler in the process. Despite having 5 members up top, they did not want to commit, and it just goes to show you how far Colombia are ahead of Mexico, right? Because they could have very, very easily dove the Terizla, but the fact that Abyss QT was still not seen on the map and he was already rotating up top, they couldn't risk it. I think 2v5 even with the Zosk. This is why the Zosk is just so prio, so powerful. You can go for an Astro.
Oh. Astro goes in with the conceal, goes for the pull, but is going to get punished himself. Full barrage dropped, but it's a little bit too short on the range. That might be a little moment for Mexico to hold on a little bit longer. They'll deal with the Lord here. The turrets take a couple shots. The shields are going to be popped, at least in the mid and the top lane. These ones in the bottom should go down as well, but they hold on for a little bit longer. So, man, Colombia based off by what Astro wanted to do, are going to get punished. And now the Conceal in the response from Mexico, going to be looking for Abyss. Cutie pops to the scent, though. Will be able to fire off on Zoltra. The damage is massive. Zoltra will be the one to fall. Ziggy stays alive, so they still find a couple kills, but look who's still going. Abyss Cutie will get out of there finally. But Mexico looking to find some life here to fight back against Colombia.
The fact that in the 2v5 almost, they still only were able to get 1 kill is definitely concerning for Mexico, because again, for Colombia, they're still scaling.
Yeah.
For Mexico, they're also scaling, but obviously, you know, when you want to deal damage with a carry, when you want to deal damage with a Roger, it's a bit harder to execute that damage in the later stage of the game, especially considering for Colombia, not only do they have tanky front lines, they have frontliners that can actually deal a whole lot of damage too, right? The Terizla, the Alpha, in most cases for Terizla, we see Queen's Wings, Dominance Ice, and then the Dreadnought Armor, you know, just going straight for a physical defense, or defense in general. But here, we're seeing the War Axe built up by Delica. We're seeing the War Axe as well from Prime Marigod. So when they dive forward, Mexico can't just ignore them. They really have to try to deal with them. And while they're trying to deal with those frontliners, you have a Kaja that's constantly looking for flanks. You have a full barrage that you really have no answers for at this point. With how the Yuzong is playing right now, he's doing a good job. Don't get me wrong here. Pika is doing amazing still, despite, you know, them being so far behind. But it's not really going to be enough to threaten the Ixia to be taken down. Not with the Zask around her. Now the fact that the Zask can actually decide to jump in with Dominance Descent or play with the Ixia, Pika will get bursted down either way. If he plays with the team or if he tries to dive alone, it's just going to be really, really tough. Especially in around these neutral objectives, which Colombia are definitely already setting up for. Mexico, I think at this point, they're going to have to play turret defense.
It might have to. With this too, you can already see, like I said, anytime that Mexico wants to think about going towards these objectives and in the space, they always got to be conscious of where is Astro, and right now they're going to be too late to even get the information that they need. Lord's already secured here. Astro holding down that front side, so they'll just grab the buffs at least for now. And like you said, it's got to be up to a defense in the base, you know, turret defense for them right now for Mexico. Items, looking at the items too, you know, they should be able to withstand even this next Lord. It's not, you know, in the territory of 3-4 Lords in, but the problem is just avoid Astro. Don't get that numbers disadvantage that Colombia is going to be looking for here, and get ready to have this defense for you, because, you know, at least you have even the slow available here. You have that Ice Queen Wand now for Ziggy that might be able to help if he's able to land that beacon really well alongside that dragon form. But I think that's part of it. You have to expect that Colombia is going to try to force a situation and do better than what they attempted last time.
These are some bad waves, though, for Colombia. The fact that they only have 1 wave to play with is going to be pretty okay for Mexico to deal with right now. The Lord charges in.
Yeah, Lord's going to be able to get this turret down for them. We'll see if they can get anything more. A lot already expended, though, for that. Now their eyes are set on the top side. Conceal going to be used. Beacon already committed to, so they're going to go for it a little bit longer. Full barrage, though. Going to find the targets, make it all of them as 3 do fall for Mexico. What a play already from Colombia. Still going to be looking for more. It's a double kill for Replic, and they'll work on the base. Colombia will take game number 1 in 14 minutes.
Spectacular performance from Colombia in game number 1 up against Mexico. We were talking about how this game was the game that should have been close. This match in, you know, we predicted it to go all the way 3 games. But with how Colombia started the series off, it might be a clean sweep again. That was some damage that they pulled off, you know? Not just physical damage or magical damage, but honestly, that's a little bit of emotional damage as well. The fact that they were able to do that with just a second Lord while not managing the waves in a way where it actually crashed down 3 waves together, right? It was 1 wave that they used in the mid lane, and then another wave up top. They just utilized their combo and their team fighting to end the game. And again, it comes down to the second turtle here, where they were able to adjust from the mistakes that they made around the first turtle. They played around it. Again, it was just them constantly playing together, Astro and Replic, but everybody else diving when they needed to. Instantly initiating onto the back line of Mexico when they try to go for the onward, when they try to go for the Earth Shatter, the pickoffs as well. And in a lot of these skirmishes, we did see some of the mistakes happening from Astro, you know, definitely overzealous there with the Kaja, trying to go for the angle to go for a pickoff. And then obviously here Replic gets picked off, but even in their mistakes, they shine through. But I gotta stop talking about, you know, those moments, because we gotta give the highlight over to this moment right here. Amazing penalty zone into the Spear of Alpha, and the full barrage was already placed down there, and that combo was just perfectly executed. Time to perfection, perfectly executed. I don't know. I'm just trying to find more words to compliment what they did there, because it was
so good.
Really a very, very well played, you know, sequence of events there that they did. And if you take a look at the damage, this is why me personally, I definitely would have expected for Mexico to ban out the Zask over the Ruby that they ended up banning in their last, you know, slot. And this is the reason: 45,000 damage dealt, despite the fact that, you know, Replic was already bullying in the lane, was already winning in the lane, had a snowball for herself. Merigon in the Alpha was also winning. Delica was getting a lot of good damage too. It's still Zask. Despite everything that you saw there, despite the combos that you saw from Replic and, you know, the rest of the dudes here, it's always going to be Zask. And it's just fitting for the Zask player to be called Abyss QT, you know, coming from the Abyss himself. 5 eliminations for Abyss QT. It's a clean game all the way from the start, and maybe it was planned. Maybe the you know, waves that came in a bit staggered was the plan overall for Colombia, and it actually worked out really, really well. The fact that they were able to get the base turret in the mid lane, force out some of those resources from Mexico just for the defense to happen, and then punish them up top when another enhanced wave came in. It just played out really well, and it now has got me thinking that maybe it was planned. Maybe that was what they were looking for.
It's almost to a point where it's just like the layering, like you were, you know, trying to find the words for the layering of the ultimates that Colombia had here was just too perfect. Abyss QT, like you mentioned, Zast just does unreal damage, especially with a build like this. You're going to do a ton of damage, but that's again that part of the thing that Abyss QT did. What I really liked, especially in the early game, was just being able to peel if he had to for Replic in some cases. And like you mentioned in the draft, you know, the power of Zask not only is the damage, but it's like an extra health bar. Like you get him low, but then all of a sudden, boom, Dominator's Descent. Like then you got to go through that, and you can't actually just. What's so difficult, and I don't know if maybe there's got to be a change to this eventually for Moonton, but like you do so much to get his health bar low, pops Dominator's Descent, and then like you try to do it again, but his damage just hurts so much that you can't just like sit there. You know what I mean? Like you have to then think either I'm going to take him down with me or something's going to happen here. I'm going to retreat, you know? But yeah, eventually the thing is Colombia just really played this lineup to perfection. And I think even that final fight, I mean, what do you do against that? Penalty zone, a Divine Judgment, a Spear of Alpha, and then a full barrage. How do you play against that? You know, especially when you're down. So congratulations there to Colombia for that game one.
Well, I think they're definitely going to have to think about the question that you've been asking, the questions you've been asking. How do they deal with that during the break? Because we will be going on a 5-minute break to see game number 2. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, after a very, very quick break. Still again with Mirko and Naisu. Nothing has changed here, but the stakes have definitely changed for Mexico after losing game number 1. Not in the close manner that we expected. It was an absolute stop. All the way from the start of the game towards the end, and what better to dominate than the Dominator's Descent, right? It's the Zask Naisu. I'm telling you, the Zask is just too broken, and I think adaptation number 1 after the break, you know, for Mexico has got to be ban it or pick it up themselves, because technically they can go for blue side this time.
That's true. And it almost makes me feel like, was it just the Zask? Like, was that just the problem there? Because obviously he does a insane amount of damage and everything else, but yeah, I just feel like, I don't know, Colombia, this is honestly, from all the games that we've seen from them, this is the best they've looked in this game number 1 against Mexico. Because, you know, again, Mexico went through their group stage pretty much undefeated and everything else, but when they get to this point, it's like, how are they going to adjust from what just happened in game 1? And I think, yeah, step 1, ban the Zask, or maybe try to get it yourself. But I think that even to an extent, Colombia wouldn't let that happen. Like, if they had to, they'd probably end up banning it out. This could also be a case where, you know, at least for Mexico, if you're trying to get the right footing here to start, it might be also just securing yourself maybe an assassin jungler. I'm not sure again what their picks have been up to this point, because we only had them, I think, on stream once. But that's part of it too, is like getting yourself that early momentum secured. Now, part of that, I feel like, again, the reason why I say it's not just Zask, for this Kaja pick, I feel like really played a part in, you know, the pickoffs, because every single time that the Divine Judgment was available, there was only like one blunder that we saw Astro do, and you know, they were trying to push it in. He dove in with a conceal between the tier 2 and tier 3 turrets. But that's the thing, like, Kaja was a high value pick in here, where they were oftentimes doing exactly what I said before we got to the game, or when we jumped into it, which was you go for a pickoff before a big team fight or an objective take, and you just build up from there. And that's what they were able to do time and time again. I just don't think, you know, obviously Kaja's worth banning, but that was definitely part of the success, obviously, with why Colombia got that lead that they had, and they were so dominant throughout it all. So I think there's a lot of things that Mexico can do here, and part of that, like I said, is taking out the Zask, unless they really do try to get it themselves. And this is almost the thing where, like, I'm starting to realize, even yesterday when we were going through the games, it's like Jushin is great, but in comparison, like, if you're going to put Jushin here and across from you is a mage or like a Zask, I just think it's not going to work out, you know, for the long run, because the damage isn't just comparison. Like, you're just getting outgunned so much from whatever mage that might be. It might be a Zask, might be a Vexana, for example, or any other high damage mage. And it's great to be pulling people around, but then what? You know, after you pull them around, you might be able to catch some of the XP laners, like we usually see, like a Trizla or something, getting thrown around easily. But, you know, I just feel like maybe that's something they could consider as well for game 2, is picking a little bit more damage in that mid lane position to round out their lineup a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, there are definitely a lot of things that they can do to adapt for that change, because I agree, it's not just the Zask that is the problem. It was a culmination of a lot of different things, but I think the Zask was the main problem. That's what started it all. And that was the first pick, because you need a solid foundation to actually build on that draft. But it seems nice too that we will actually be going for a 3-minute break, as we're still waiting for the players to get ready. But don't worry, we'll be back just in a bit. And we're back once again, boys and girls. Sorry, very, very sorry for, you know, another break there, because we did have a few troubles getting into the game, but it's all right now. Nice. We had a lot more time, a solid 3 more minutes to talk about, you know, the draft, to talk about the adjustments that they would have to make in game number 2. And honestly, I think we have to continue where we last left off, which was the fact that the Zask is the first pick. It's the foundation for them to actually build that kind of composition, right? And I think based on that game, as well as based on the previous games from Mexico, I definitely want to say that for Mexico, the part they struggle the most in the game has got to be the draft. Like, in the game itself, they still understand how to execute their game plan, how to execute whatever draft that they've actually gone for. But in the draft itself, a lot of times they would actually lose out. But, you know, previously they would still be able to win out in the game itself, just through better execution. This time around, though, when they're equally skilled, draft plays so much more of a difference, right? And then for Colombia, they were able to outsmart Mexico, because both of us agreed, even I think before the game even started, that Colombia just had a better draft at that point. But we are just going to be jumping into the drafts for game number 2, and this time, yes, Mexico will be swapping sides with Colombia. It'll be Mexico on the blue side, but still with the same bans. It was Fanny and Ling earlier. Let's see if they actually go out with the Ling too, or maybe they want to pick it up for themselves.
Still waters run deep.
Right, okay. They ban out the Ling. I know it's out. Also in the group stage, they, looking at the stats here, they also played a Lancelot. So, you know, there's definitely still options here, even if these are assassin-focused bans. I think, too, Mexico, like a mainstay, they'll still want to possibly get Zultra on the Edith if it's left open, but I don't think it's going to be first pick. I think first pick, obviously, still you're playing into the Zask, could be what they're going for. as you know, depending on what this last ban is going to be from both teams, you can prioritize the Zask, you can prioritize picking up, like I said, one of the XP lane still options. I don't know if they like the Roger that much, because looking at the stats, based on at least the information that we have of the games that they played, they didn't pick up the Roger, I don't think at all, unless it was just mostly picked up by the opposing team. They ban out the alpha here, so they solved the issues that I would say they dealt with. Oh, there it is. So they forced the ban out from Colombia to take out the Zask. Chip's open. I don't know how. I know Chip is still great, man, but you and I both have seen this time and time again the past 4 days where teams will pick up a chip and they end up hurting themselves with it, not really using it to what it should be. You know, like they end up being a shortcut to demise. But they're also going to bring up the Jushin once again. What is this next pick? Is this going to be their jungle pick next up? They already know there's a Roger across from them. That's Flex right now from Colombia.
Yeah, I think it'll be definitely very, very tough if they want to go for the jungle right now. Because Alpha Link Fanny is banned down, the Hayabusa is banned down. So, like you said, Lancelot, we have seen Lancelot from Mexico before. I don't know if they want to actually pick it up here with a chip, because usually you want to go for, you know, these types of brawlers in the jungle. Maybe something like a Martis could actually still work out for them. But if they do want to go for that, there's no real reason for them to pick it up here, right? They can actually pick it up later on. I don't think Colombia will be banning out the Martis anyways, so they go for the Xborg instead. So really, at this point, setting up for winning lanes too, right? Because in the previous game, a big factor as to, you know, how Colombia was able to take control of the game is the fact that they were able to get some strong lanes. So now they have Xborg up against the Terizla. Good matchup for him. The Juicin and the Chip too, so they have control over the map. But like you said, I think we've gotten to a place in the meta right now where a lot of different teams, most teams in the world and most players in the world know what the Chip does, right? It's very different to when he was first released, where we didn't know what the counter was towards the Chip. We didn't have the Carmilla back in the day. We did, but no one knew that the Carmilla would actually, you know, destroy him. The penalty zones, the rubies as well, just to stop the momentum from happening. But now I feel like Colombia, they've had a very, very solid answer with the Terizla. And to back it up on the Terizla, they have an Aurora now. So they're challenging Mexico, saying, yeah, if you want to go and chip, if you want to shortcut people in together, clump people up together, we have an Aurora now on top of the penalty zone.
It's our showtime.
That's good enough too. Like, honestly, because like having penalty zone or even just the glacier alone is actually enough to deal with a lot of the shortcut pressure. And I think too, having that passive is going to help a little bit longer too, like help you survive a little bit longer too, of course, for the Aurora, especially if you're being dragged here and there. One thing I guess that's good about the Chip too, aside from the shortcut, is obviously like his unexpected damage as a roamer, especially the concussive blast like Chips, you know, especially with the crash course and everything. So they might, if Mexico can play around the early game pressure from this, it could really help them out, depending on what their jungler is going to be too. And I just don't want to throw out the possibility. I know naturally we're going to think, all right, obviously the Xborg versus the Terizla matchup, but what if, depending on how the rest of this go, I don't know if they have it in them, but we have seen the Xborg go in the jungle. That has been flexed a couple times actually, and now I'm just going to assume it is XP lane. But if that's the case, I think it really depends on what else Colombia brings to the table here, because of the fact, again, what is that roaming option? It's good that Mexico took out the, you know, one of the main problems for the previous game, which was the Kaja. Good ban here. Colombia does take out the Hylos. Rising star, I would say, in terms of hero picks is the Hylos lately. And I've even seen people talking about this on online a lot, that he even works great in the jungle right now, especially against all these assassins, you know?
A big throwback to back in the day when Wise actually played the Hylos in the jungle a whole lot, right? Great clear back in the day with the second skill. I don't know if it's still the case now with the Hylos jungle, but from Fight Horse, we've learned that the horse is better at XP, right? Yeah. So far, at least. We haven't really seen it work in roam as much, and even in the jungle, but hey, maybe it will make a comeback in the jungle too. But now it's the Minotaur banned out as well, so really just trying to nail down on, you know, a few of the heroes that Colombia can go for when they're up against this kind of dive, which Minotaur definitely is, definitely fits that agenda. I think the Edith, though, is a very similar pick to the Minotaur, but on top of the CC that she adds, she also has a lot of damage, right? They'll go for the Natan first, so revealing that the Roger will indeed be going to the jungle. And I would say for the Natan, it's a good answer up against the Exborg, at least when he gets his item power spikes, because the Faraga armor will be melted down like it's nothing. But again, you really need to wait for the Natan to get to the item power spikes, which isn't as easy nowadays. Back in the day, it was actually very, very easy. I remember the Natan was like first pick always, right? Because you can just play around on the Natan, give him all the resources, and he'll be able to get the Holy Crystal easily by the 10th minute. But now, especially considering, you know, the meta definitely favors the early game heroes, the early game teams a bit more. It has been tough for Natan to actually get to that point. But now the Brody gets picked up, so you can already see what Mexico are going for here. They're really just trying to get the snowball as early as possible, and they go for the Baxia 2 here. So, yeah, for me, a big issue for them was the fact that they don't have a jungler, and they've already banned out so many of the other junglers, like the Alpha, Ling, Fannies, and also the Hayabusa coming out from Colombia. So they were kind of forced into this Baxia pick. I think it's the only utility jungle that is good right now, aside from maybe the Bane. I think Bane could have definitely worked too, but maybe they just wanted a bit more frontlining presence here because they already had the Juicin and the Brody. But still, for Mexico, this is a draft that is quite reliant on snowballing with the Brody, right? Because even they can go for late game, but it's still going to be tough with the Natan on the other side. You really want to go for snowball, I think. Early game is definitely your best friend.
Oof.
Good answer. Really good answer. The Tig. I love the Tig pick. It's great against the Baxia. It's great against the Chip, and especially against the Brody. When you reveal the Brody here, you place yourself in a very vulnerable state. Usually we see teams even go for Chose when you see Brody, right? Because you can't go for Purifying the Brody. Well, you can, but it's not optimal.
Yeah,
you usually want to go just for the Flicker. And man, I really like the draft coming in from Colombia.
Yeah, I think they covered all their bases in terms of like dealing with the utility, because like if you look at Mexico's lineup, a lot of it is utility based, obviously, with the Chip and the Jushin, and then really all Colombia has to do is avoid the Last Insanity for the most part, and then, you know, even if they get marked up, like they have enough coverage, I would say. Like for example, the Entropy, they have the Body of Smith passive to keep the tanky for Terizla. You have a lot of tools here available to you to stay alive, at least through that initial burst from Mexico. So we'll see if Colombia pulls it off here, or if Mexico brings us to a game 3.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen, the last slot from America Regional Qualifier, America A. Will it be a clean sweep for Colombia, taking this game just like the United States did earlier? Or will Mexico actually force us into a game number 3 by equalizing here in game number 2? The composition that already kind of looks difficult to pull off here, considering, you know, like you said, Colombia have all the bases covered with the Tigreal, with the Aurora 2. But when it comes to the Lethal Wanderer, this is definitely still the strong suit for Mexico with the early game juicing.
Yeah, part of that too, like you see with the Flare, Abyss Cutie's going to have to deal with. But, you know, Baxia, like you said, I think he's probably the most consistent utility jungler right now, I would say. I know we still see the likes of our Fredrins and the Martis pop up. Barrett's obviously has really fallen off, but I feel like Baxia is just so strong because of the fact that you can rotate around fast enough. You're jungling, like even if you were to die in the beginning or everything, like you can rotate enough that you can put pressure on the side lanes if you have to, and it's just naturally he's tanky enough, I would say. And that might be okay. Well, okay, Ziggy, that might be okay for them. Yeah, we didn't see that to play around with, but I think that's the thing is like you have enough tankiness from Mexico early on, especially with the Chip there, even in a way, you know, having this export. But it's like Colombia, like I said, as long as they play a little bit of almost a push and pull in how they decide to go against this lineup from Mexico, they're going to actually be able to come out on top of a lot of the fights, right? Because of just what they have available to them. Especially, we've seen so many successful Tigreals. Now, the fight for the turtle, though, not sure if they're going to actually commit to it. It goes for a reset. Zultra doesn't have the level 4 just yet. No shortcut available. He has it now. They're going to drop down. There's the Frigid Glacier going to be dropped. Finds multiple targets, but it's Primary God the one to fall first for the first blood. The drag in for Delika. Can't escape the flare. Pika has to flicker out. They're still going at it. Turtle still for the taking here, but Mexico will find 2 kills. Okay, and we'll be able to get this turtle too.
Okay, so Replic really, he tried to take the shortcut back towards lane, but unfortunately duration ran out and the shortcut got deleted off of the map. So he actually kind of panicked there too, used the entropy again, blinked back, but for Mexico, they weren't really able to catch him. But still, well played to Mexico, really utilizing the shortcut well. And for Colombia, I feel like it was just a bit of panic there, where they could have just gone in onto Zultra, and then for Abyss QT, he could have just waited for the shortcut to come in before utilizing the Frigid Glacier. But he ended up just trying to use the Frigid Glacier as fast as possible to get Zultra down. And it was a bit of miscalculation coming in from Colombia that they definitely could fix on again. It wasn't, you know, an instant win as well for the first turtle for Colombia in game number 1. So they can still make those adjustments happen in towards turtle number 2. But still, for Mexico, this is an amazing start. This is the start that they needed with this kind of composition. Snowballing with the Brody, with the chip, obviously, and Replic forced back.
Wow, okay. Look at the damage that already respected. He's going to pop the torn apart memory. He just picked up the blade, too. I think they're going to go a little bit further. Abyss Cutie joins the fight alongside. He has to flicker out. Frigid Glacier going to be used. There's the implosion. They're going to find Zultra. Zultra takes quite a few turret shots, but unfortunately, Abyss Cutie couldn't get the kill. They go through the shortcut. Penalty zone going to be used out from Delika. It's a whole chaos up here on the top side. Primary got in trouble. There's the flicker from Abyss Cutie. Won't be able to find Zeke either. Kendo picks up a kill. Colombia, very messy. Will they be able to find at least one? Kendo going to get targeted down, but he's so tanky himself. Replic jumps in with the entropy, and nobody goes down from Mexico. What happened to Colombia there?
It was just way too chaotic, super staggered across the board in Colombia. They really need to make a decision as to who they want to go for, because everyone had their own idea of who to target. Delika wanted to go for the 2 members under the turret, then we saw Abyss QT flickering forward to go for the other member there, and Marigot as well was chasing the people in the bush. So everybody was going for different targets, and obviously for Mexico, the fact that they were already ahead, the fact that they're also an early game skirmishing type of composition, they basically thrive off of that. And now Kendo is looking for a steal.
Okay, yeah, he's not going to get it. Pops the ultimate as well, but still, this is objectives and everything else for Mexico right now. You know, now getting nearly 4,000 gold ahead against Colombia. I'm really sure where Colombia can find a win for themselves currently. You know, it looks like even for Primary God, he's just kind of struggling to really find his footing right now. He's going to have to rely on the rest of the team, because look at this lead that Kendo's also building up. And this is the thing. They're going to go for this bottom side. They crash into the Delika. Has to flicker out defensively. Flare going to be used to bring him back. Pops the penalty zone defensively. But man, Colombia, you can see them really struggling here.
I think at this point of the game, for Colombia, they really need to go back to plan B, which is still scale for the Natan. Zultra, though!
Oh, he gets the freeze off into the implosion. Should be able to pick up the kill, and Zultra drops it down. Now they're going to fight it out. Last Insanity under the turret coming through. Abyss Cutie won't have the passive any longer. Primary God trying to pick up on Pika, but he gets away with his life, and now they're going to work on this tier 2 turret. Kendo zones everybody else down. Colombia losing a lot of map space already this early on.
It's going to be really, really tough. The fact that Mexico have such a massive gold lead at this point of the game with a snowballing composition in the Brody, in the Baksha too. That's a Radiant armor built up. So already respecting the damage of Replic, despite Replic not even hitting those item power spikes yet. And I would say it's really, really good preemptive defensive building here coming in from the Mexican jungler. It does seem like Primary God, though, won't even be able to pick up his own orange buff.
Oh yeah, he's not going to get that in there. Penalty zone going to be used by Delika, but that body of Smith is not going to be enough to withstand that. They go in a little bit longer. They have to force the fight, I guess, but Colombia will lose 2 in the exchange while Mexico continues to build their lead. This looks completely one-sided for this one, just like we saw in favor of Colombia in game 1. This time around for Mexico, it's their game so far, as this third turtle is just going to go in the hands of Mexico once again. And this is very dire now for Colombia.
The meta favors early game compositions, right? We were talking about this in the draft as well. Despite Colombia covering all the bases, I would say the execution has just not been clean at all. It's completely different to how they played game number 1, where they understood the, job description of every single member, of every single pick in the team, and they definitely understood the limits of what they could, the team fights they could actually take. Meanwhile, here, it definitely feels like they're a bit uncomfortable when they are put in a position like this, behind, up against a composition that snowballs, up against a composition that can really just punish a lot of the chaotic fights that has been happening. Ziggy, already with the beacon too, they're sieging tier 2.
Wow, they're just going for it at this point. In Colombia, they're in a position where they just can't do much but watch. And that's kind of the downside here. Like we mentioned, even with this Natan pick, you need a lot of time for Replic to build up, and just seems like Mexico is not going to give them that opportunity. They're going to take everything they can right now, at least in these tier 2s. Next focus is this mid lane. Colombia trying to hold it together the best they can. Astro won't be able to find his own setup that they're looking for, and that's the turret going down here. They're also probably going to lose this purple buff. So I don't think really Colombia has much space to work with at all. They're nearly at a 10,000 gold deficit against Mexico. So, we talked about this lineup a lot, especially with the draft that Colombia had here, and that it was going to be good against Zoltra's chip. But so far, Zoltra has been doing very well on the chip this time around, and just it's actually this one been the layering of ultimates from Mexico. The last Insanity, even the beacon, sometimes, Ziggy might be a little trigger happy on the beacon, but a lot of times he's able to at least get someone with a flare and bring them back, so great setups here from Mexico, great positioning, and they're just waiting for this next lord in 10 seconds.
They have all the time in the world, especially considering they have a chip too, so technically they can actually play around the other side while some of the members start hitting the lord, so they can actually somehow prevent the Natan even from farming with the chip here. And you can already see that happening with the chip. Zoltra is staying up top, waiting for Natan to overstep just a bit for him to go for a shortcut right as they get the lord. If they get this team fight up top, by the way, right as they get the lord, this might just be game, because again, they need the Natan to still stay alive here if they want to make the defense possible. I don't know if my eyes are lying to me there, but I think Ziggy just picked up a Thunderbelt on the Juicin.
On the Juicin.
Yeah, I mean, Thunderbelt's been massive for every single pick. We've seen so many different heroes just pick up Thunderbelt. And at this point, we have 2 Thunderbelts on the team for Mexico. We have one for Chip. We have one for Juicin too. After the Ice Queen won, straight into the Thunderbelt. An interesting build for sure. And yeah, Colombia, 10,000 gold behind. I understand what Abiscuti was doing there, but he ended up rocking the Holy Defense, which is not optimal at all to make this defense possible up against a snowballing Brody who can start just munching on these turrets. And I think at this point, they can clear out the bottom wave together with the mid lane, have just 2 waves pushing, and they should be able to take a base turret over from Colombia.
Ooh, okay, Replic gonna use that entropy already. Last Insanity on the turret. Mid turret still gonna be worked on. They jump in shortcut under the base already. They take a little bit trip for the ride. No one going down just yet. Lord still up. Turret also holding it down. So Colombia, despite it all, will clear out the Lord and hold on to their base turrets for now. We'll see they'll heal back up. They'll get back in position here. But I don't know, that was a really good decision from Replic to go ahead and start that up using that entropy. They kept things together, calm and collected. And for Mexico, they're happy with at least getting the shields down. They don't want to overextend, which is surprising because they're 10,000 gold ahead. So there's still some respect there for the lineup of what Colombia's lineup is capable of doing. They don't want to get caught in a position where they are completely, wiped out, or multiple members get frozen out and then taken in to an implosion or anything like that. But again, when we saw those items, typically by that 11-minute mark, you've already got the Holy Crystal locked in for Replic. Replic doesn't have that. He went the Feather of Heaven and then the Starlium Scythe first. He might be building up to the Holy Crystal or Divine Glaive, but there, whoa, Replic! I was just talking about you, man, and then he gets blown up there. So now they're on the run, on the retreat. I don't think Abiscuti's going to be able to escape either. Has the passive. It's going to be popped, but the rest of the team jumps in. Penalty zone, there's the implosion. But unfortunately, they don't have Replic to fight this out with them. So they'll get punished time and time again throughout the fight. They're still going to be working on this turret here with that shortcut up, taking the shots from the turret. Finally goes down. They've got 2 members left up. Can Mexico end this one and take it to a game 3 already? Waiting for these waves to push in, but Replic finally back up. Still got the numbers advantage. They're going to drag Delica back. He can't escape this one. He takes a ton of damage and will fall, and there's the last Insanity 2. It looks like Mexico is going to do it in 12.5 minutes and take us to a game 3.
Just as expected, all the way from game number 1. We were talking about how this series was meant to be close, and it turns out game number 1, it was a stomp, but Mexico can do the exact same thing in game number 2. Just through adjustments, through also prioritizing the early game over the later stage of the game, playing towards the meta and going for these turtles, they took the game even faster, I would say, right? I mean, even more dominant than how Colombia were able to get the job done in game number 1. So, well played to Mexico, really reading between the lines here to find a way to take the game. And it all started with the first turtle, with how they were actually able to stagger some of these abilities and the teleports coming in. Because it wasn't a full combo from Colombia. That was definitely what they were hoping for, right? For Colombia, waiting for the shortcut to happen, waiting for everyone to come in the penalty zone, straight into the implosion, into the frigid glacier as well. But all of that was mistimed, and this was really the biggest mistake, I would say, for Colombia. The fact that they already lost the initial fight with the shortcut coming down up top, and they still decided to try to force a fight, but none of them were on the same page. Everybody was doing their own thing. Marigot was chasing in the bottom part of the top lane fight, and then the rest of them were still under the turret. And here we did see a few good combos, I guess, right, with initiations and landing onto 4, but at that point they're just way too behind. And honestly, at this point, I really wonder why they actually are still going for these team fights, right? Because they still have the base turret there to try to go for the defense. They still have so many ways to actually fight, and at least prolong the game, delay the game a bit later. But still, for Colombia, they just constantly decided to fight. And if they do want to fight, this definitely isn't the composition to go for the fight in the early game, right? They definitely still needed to wait for the mid game. They definitely needed to hit those power spikes under the ton. And yeah, you were talking about Replic. You were talking about how he needed the Holy Crystal already by the 11th minute. That's usually the normal timer for Natan to get it. But just as you say that, he gets picked off. I don't know if that's the caster curse just working, you know, instantaneously there. Just as you mention him, he disappears, gets taken off the board. But it's some unfortunate stuff for Colombia. It definitely feels like they're just not comfortable with the composition that needs to wait for power spikes. And for Mexico, they make the chip work for the second time this time. They were able to make it work in their previous win, their previous match win. And now they did it again with the chip. Just really solid performance overall, despite already, by the way, putting themselves in quite a vulnerable spot with a Brody, with the chip, obviously, and with the last pick Baksha up against this kind of composition that can actually just chain CC you and punish you. It was just Mexico outclassing Colombia through execution.
Yeah, and when we, I guess when you look at game 1 and then you look at this for game 2, they both had their advantages with the lineups that they had, and they executed it well. And I don't know, I feel like for this one too, Mexico, they were just kind of like, you know what, whatever happened in game 1, let's just put it to a side and let's make this lineup work. I think even with the Brody there, the Brody didn't even get as much time to like shine as he probably had hoped, because of just everyone was doing so much on the team. And as we look at Kendo here getting the MVP again, this pick, I mean, think about the contrast between his first game when it was the Roger, right? The Roger that he had, and then he goes to the Baksha here. Like, he did so much in the early game based on rotations, and I think it just was part of the chaos. Like, if you think about how he was able to go at different angles, and then you have a chip there as well, maybe that was part of the case why Colombia had such a hard time when it came to target acquisition, because that's the main thing that stuck out with that. It's just like very disgruntled, in terms of like what the game plan was when it came to those fights. And I think Mexico realized that too, and they just continue to punish it. So hey, we're down to I wouldn't have it any other way, man. It's the last series of all the American regional qualifiers here, at least for the men's teams right now.
We gotta have game 3, all the online qualifiers.
That's true, of all of them. So now we get down to one last game.
Can only end this way, right? For all the ending technically to all the online qualifiers, and we'll get a game number 3. We saw Mexico just after game number 1 Will we see Colombia adjust after game number 2? We'll find out after this short break. The American Regional Qualifiers couldn't have ended any other way, and to end not just the American Regional Qualifiers, but all of the online qualifiers, our final match will go all the way to a full 3-game series with, again, Colombia stomping Mexico in game number 1, and then Mexico returning the favor in game number 2. And usually, Naisu, that's what sets up for a very climactic ending, right? A 30-minute banger of a game where both of them just keep on going back and forth, comebacks left and right.
5 lords, 30 minutes.
5 lords.
maybe we get to
70
the
minutes.
point.
Make it 15 lords.
Let's not go there. You know, I don't know I wonder what the statistic is like. What's the game right now? Because for ISF we had the game with the fastest time. Like, what is the game with the longest time for ISF? Like,
if we can get the shortest time, we can also get the longest, right? We had the shortest game of MLBB, and I believe the people who did it are actually watching right now or watch partying together. So shout out to them if they actually are watching. Team USA.
Team Freedom. Right at that
Team
point,
Freedom.
with the way that they played. But yeah, back to this, man. Because of the fact that game 1 and game 2 were both pretty much like one-sided for both teams, like, where do you even go for the adjustment, you know, from here? Because I feel like with what we saw Mexico struggle with in game 1, it was the same thing for game 2 for Colombia, you know, and you can see them, they are going to flip sides. So maybe that's part of it, where it's like, yeah, we want that blue side, man. You know, we want that statistically better side for now. But you can see even some of the bans obviously still going to be very similar, but Colombia this time around, they don't want to deal with the chip. So it is banned out, and Mexico didn't want to deal with that ZAS that they had to deal with in game 1. So they banned this out. So I'm wondering, like, Colombian, at least for them, what do they want to do this time around? Obviously, mid lane is going to be very different because of the fact you won't see the Jushin this time. You won't see that Zask. They're still going for those assassin picks, obviously, to ban those out. The Fanny, the Ling, the Hayabusa. First pick, Ruby. We picked that up for Colombia. And it looks like this could possibly be, I'm not sure if they'll switch it, but maybe this ends up being Replic. Is this Replic going to be the gold lane Ruby?
Yeah, I think there's a big chance of the Ruby actually going to the gold lane, right? It's one of the only heroes that can actually be flexed in 3 different roles: XP, Roam, and Gold, and that's why it's just so prio. It was actually banned out in game 1 and game number 2, and finally it gets left open here in game number 3, but they give over some massive picks to Mexico. That's an alpha pick for Kendo. It's a comfort as well, and also that's the Roger for Rakpin. The bad part about the alpha together with the Roger is the fact that you can't use the Roger as flex anymore, but still, like we've been talking about, you know, the Roger, it's solid as a gold laner, and you already have an amazing jungler as well in the alpha. So
yeah,
for Colombia at this point, there's some ways to try to go up against this, right? They can go for the Terizla again, which is a great answer still. But it will kind of impact where the Ruby will go, because then we'll only have 2 more roles where it can be flexed. Still, though, I think it's a good decision to go for the Terizla to take away from Mexico, because, again, if they already have the Alpha and the Roger, I think definitely they're going to be looking for big setters. The Terizla definitely still fits in there. We get a Khalid instead, which is a pick that we haven't seen at all in the entirety of the American Regional Qualifier.
I'm trying to. I'm looking real quick because I feel like I saw this somewhere. At least on one of the picks. I'm not sure if it was Colombia that brought this to the table. Maybe on one of the games, but I remember just seeing the Khalid the frame being up. So either way, it's not a hero we see often, you know, for the most part. And I can only think of a handful of actually competitive players, and even in different tournaments, that will play the Khalid. But this is interesting that it gets picked up because there it is. Terizla is actually going to be locked in here from Mexico. So because of the fact that now, you know, it is maybe there's also, because I was thinking, you know, Replic, is he going to play the Ruby in the gold lane? But because of the carry locked in there. So they kind of go that route. Now, you know, all right, Ruby's at least going to go into the Roam. So with this, I'm still wondering what is going to be their mid lane option, because Mexico might target this in now. there's no way. Like Khalid can't jungle, can he? Like I'm sure he's going to the XP lane.
No, it has to
There's
be
no
XP.
way, right? It has to be XP.
I really don't think there's a way for the Khalid to go into the jungle, right? I mean, technically, if they want to, they can still flex it out. But again, this is why I'm kind of concerned as to the Khalid and the carry pick. Because with the Khalid and the carry, you basically say that the Ruby is confirmed to roam, right? And that removes the entire, first pick prio reason. Why did they prio the Ruby here so much? I guess it's just because it's a great stopper. But even then, for Mexico, the Spear of Alpha isn't really stoppable with the Don't Run Wolf King, and the Terizla ult is also not stoppable, right? The only guy that you can technically stop here from going in is the Roger. If he tries to jump in with Lycan and Pounce, and then right after he comes out, you can Don't Run Wolf King him. But yeah, definitely already going to be very tough, especially considering Mexico are getting rid of the Xborg. So I guess they're expecting a jungle Xborg here, or yeah, I don't know. At this point with the Xborg ban, that leaves me to believe that we don't know where the Khalid is gonna go. It should be XP.
Should be
they
XP.
banned an Xborg, right? It could be an Xborg jungle ban, but is it really possible for the Khalid to be flexed into the? I don't think so.
I would assume it's going XP. And just I had to check. So Colombia they did play the Khalid. That was against Dominican Republic in the group stage.
It was in the jungle, right?
Yeah, it was not in the jungle. They had a Fanny at that time. Okay. So we're just gonna assume, it is going where we think it is, XP lane. They still kind of narrowed down some of the mid lane options, obviously still here. They took out the Vexana. So for Mexico, we might see them go ahead and pick their mid lane pick here. They also need a roam, and there's still quite a bit left on the table too. I mean, even the Hylos that has been banned out a couple times. Like I'm not sure if you would actually want to put that in the roam here for Mexico, but Valentina's still open, so they'll go ahead and lock that in.
Solid option to go for there with the Vexana ban and the Valentina pickup already for Mexico. Now they have a lot of different ultimates to go for too, right? The Khalid ult, that Raging Sandstorm. Yep. We have even the I'm Offended, and this kind of forces Colombia to not go for any more big ultimates, because I think the plan was maybe they wanted to go for a Tigreal or an Edith, but this would give Mexico just so much more added value in their composition. And I'm actually struggling myself to actually think about what they want to go for at this point, because it almost feels like Mexico have the better composition already, and we haven't really even seen the last two picks coming in from Colombia. For sure, we're just gonna need a mage and a roam, right? Those are a mage and a jungle. They go for the Julian, and they go for the Grok, so it's a Ruby mid. Or a Khalid jungle and a Julian mid. Still possible. I guess we'll find out, nice. So at this point, we're just going to have to find out.
We'll see what they end up doing. Because, again, we've seen teams do this so often, and that's why it throws us off a little bit for the draft, because teams often in IESF, they switch roles, on the fly. Kaja's going to be picked up by Mexico here, so we got to see Astro play that previously, and now it's going to be Mexico. So it looks like, okay, Astro's going to be here on the Ruby. Replic is going to be playing the carry, so he's not taking that. And then, of course, you have Abyss Cutie is actually going to be on the Grok here. Is that actually happening? So, and then Julian too. I mean, obviously, Julian has been a great pick. I think it is one of the highest win rates right now in terms of heroes that throughout the qualifiers. So this is just a very interesting lineup from Colombia. When I look at Mexico's lineup, it's a little more standard. You know what to expect from it. You know how it's going to be able to scale up really well, work well too. You already have good threat just because you have a Kaja alone. But I'm just wondering if Colombia's lineup, and especially with this Khalid, who we don't see often, how great it is to be able to go like 1v1, and you have great sustainability, you can heal up. The Raging Sandstorm is a great setup tool, plus paired up with a Grok, so we'll see.
We'll see indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, game number 3 to decider as to who will qualify to WEC 24. Still both Mexico and Colombia on the road to Riyadh. But unfortunately for one of these teams, that road will end. For another, they will be able to go to Riyadh to represent their nation there. And right now, Kendo clear super fast already. You can already see purple buff into the orange buff here, and it's because of the peel, or sorry, the I would say the leash coming in from Zultra. So Zultra on the Kaja is actually an amazing pick as well, right? Because you can actually go through Abyss QT's Power of Nature. It's also a good way to set up for a punish towards Prime Marigot.
Yeah, I'm wondering too, you know, with like how often do you see the mid lane Grok? I can see, I remember us seeing this in MWI, you know, but you don't see that often. And with this, they're going for just this pure like setup potential between Astro and Abyss Cutie. I mean, even to Delika to an extent, but like that's the thing. You need some time to be able to build up for Replic. Traditionally, for this carry, it does take quite a bit of time. Now, maybe you're just relying on Prime Marigot. Julian, that's one of the great things about him is just the amount of damage he does early on. And usually, that's what I'm saying. Like, you see the Julian paired up with another good burst, or at least like damage dealer, magic damage dealer in the mid lane, so that you can work synergistically with each other's kits, and even the item path, because typically you see the Julian build the Genius Wand. But I don't know, there's just a lot of crowd control that Colombia has. I'm just wondering if they'll have enough firepower once those crowd controls are expended. You can see here though, the poke is pretty good though. Delika gonna take the penalty zone, takes a ton of shots. Ooh. There's the knock with the enhanced chains. They get the flicker out. There's the sandstorm though. They're gonna go in a little bit further. Ziggy still gonna be alive, goes in with a wild charge. They're fighting it out a little bit longer. He's actually still gonna be able to survive the whole exchange, and Delika will go down. Whoa. Mexico grabs one. There's the Divine Judgment gonna be used, and they fight back with it. Kendo will grab the kill. Mexico again taking everything in the exchange against Colombia.
Well played to Mexico. All that time in the bottom side, they were actually able to bait, you know, Prime Marigot to join in the skirmish, and they were able to win it out in the end. Really well played to Ziggy there, flickering out of the wild charge. His own wild charge didn't connect, but we won't talk about that, right? The fact that they were able to take the win there, and also Kendo using that diversion from the rest of the team to take the turtle and then rotating over into the bottom lane to Zultra there with the Divine Judgment, and great maneuvers by Kendo, because a lot of times after getting the turtle, you would already see that as a win. You wouldn't really rotate down below, but again, the decision making just is so much clearer compared to game number 1. Mexico have really stepped up, and they're looking really scary now with an amazing gold lead. Like, this is, again, 1,000 gold lead in the first 3 minutes of the game. This is quite massive.
Yeah, it's a great start. You couldn't ask for a better start. Spirit of Alpha going to be used, but I think part of this too, again, is just playing around the fact that you've got a Kaja. Kaja, the Divine Judgment, especially when the flicker is available, it's most likely Zultra going to be making that play, pressing the situation here. And you can see Ziggy is preferring to take the wild charge, at least for now. A lot of heavy wave cutting happening here, down in the XP lane, of course. But they'll get spotted out, and they'll have to go ahead and get out of there. They knew that also that Kendo was there, and I think that's part of the thing for Colombia is, you know, getting back some of this gold, evening it out a little bit, not letting it get too out of hand. Zultra, though, won't be able to go in. Actually flickers in with the Divine Judgment. There's the knock-up, 2 into the Spear of Alpha, and Prime Marigot won't be able to survive that one. But the rest of the team now showing up from Colombia. They get a couple flickers out into the Raging Sandstorm, going to find Kendo, but they don't have enough firepower as they get forced out of the Turtle Pit. And now Mexico in control once again will be taking the Turtle, the second one of the game.
That's why the suppression is such a good tool to have here in these skirmishes. Even if you're a Grok, you're going to be caught by the Divine Judgment anyways. And here at the bottom lane, Spear of Alpha again onto Delika. Oh, he's going to just solo kill him. I did not expect that. I thought maybe Delika could have, you know, healed back up. There was no CC to be seen there, especially after Kendo used the Spear of Alpha. But hey, a kill's a kill. And now Kendo's 3-0. He was already a level up earlier, and now with the kill, he's going to be massively ahead. And now they're going to take a turret down below too. Oh, man. Everything just stacking up to that snowball from Mexico.
Well, what are they up to here? Again, Colombia, I think they're at a point where it's like, yeah, we just got to get a pick off. We got to get on the board here. You know, it's 3,000 that we're falling behind. We got no kills, we got no turrets, and now in the mid lane, once again, Abyss Cutie gonna be in trouble. Enhanced Chains comes down. They find the stun. Kendo's gonna be the one to fall. So Abyss Cutie still able to survive. There's Divine Judgment through the wall. They're gonna return it with a wild charge too. Raging Sandstorm gonna find multiple members. Zoltra goes down, but it's terrible for Colombia as now they get swaddled down a little bit further. Good try to dodge it, but Pika comes up to clean the kill, but not before Primary God will pick one up as well.
Still able to get that lethal ignition down with the enhanced sword, but man, was it tough for Colombia. Really trying to force out these skirmishes, and in the end, they were able to get a shutdown at least on Kendo, so it wasn't that bad in the end, right? They were still able to get the gold lead down from 3,000 just to 2,400, and I guess that's still something. The fact that, you know, they were able to get the kill on to Primary God as well is pretty solid. I like the fact that they got that on at least the Prio member on their team, but for Astro, at this point, it's still going to be really, really tough to, you know, stop any of these initiations on the Ruby Rapid.
Astro going to bring him in, but they didn't know that Zoltra was there too. He's going to go in and drag Replic to his death. A great Divine Judgment. Abyss Cutie making his way up top. Going to get spotted out. Wild charges in, gets the stun on two. Primary God joins the fight. Enhanced Chains going to knock them up, but Ziggy will go ahead and flicker out to safety. They're going to disengage for now, even with Dalika showing up, but the mid lane's going to be focused down. Spear of Alpha won't find the connection, but they get the turret here, still on the top side. I don't think they can find anything else from that. Mexico just knows what Colombia wants to do. Zoltra going to get blocked out, but he will slide on through the wall. The Guardian Barrier Enhanced Sword going to be used. They want to fight under the turret. Raging Sandstorm will be able to find them on the backside. Now they're on the run. The chains come out once again. They're going to be able to find a kill on Dalika. They jump in with the Spear of Alpha. Kendo, though, he will finally go down. Still going to battle out. Double kill for Rack. He gets knocked up into the air with a wild charge from Abyss Cutie. Man, this is just a fest of kills and more between both these teams, but Colombia will be able to close the gap a little bit here.
Chaotic skirmishes all around for both these teams, and like I said, Naisu, game one, it was a stomp for Colombia. Game two was a stomp for Mexico. It's only natural that game three, it's a back and forth for both these teams, and for both these teams, none of them wants to get eliminated. They both want to make it a slugfest as much as they can. It's not about the strategy at this point, it's about who has more willpower. Who wants it more? Who wants to go to Riyadh more? Is it Mexico or is it Colombia? And if we take a look at the gold lead, so far it's been Mexico. They've been able still to find a bit more of a lead in these skirmishes, in these pickoffs, and when it comes down to the neutral objectives and the structures, it's always been Mexico up top. Whoa!
Rack going to be taken out really quickly. I'm not sure if there's going to be a response from Mexico. They don't have Kendo here. And that's exactly it. Who wants it more? Who wants to go to the Riyadh more and join the United States from this group? That last slot to lock things in. Lord's going to be up. 4 members here for Mexico. I don't think they're going to start it up just yet. They're going to delay as long as they can. Still a couple seconds here for Rack to be back up to join this fight. Ziggy holds on to the wild charge himself, so Colombia, ball's in their court. Are they going to start it up too, or do they take this a little bit slower?
I think taking it slow is definitely a better option to go for at this point of the game. Because if it's just down to 1,000 gold, I think in the mid game, it really doesn't matter that 1,000 gold lead. We take a look at the items, same itemization from the Alpha and from the Terizla. Here's the War Axe into the Queen's Wings. Conceal.
Oh, Zoltra jumps in. Enhanced Chain's going to find a couple members too. Replic already taken out of the equation. Lots of flickers being expended. Dalika holding on to the Raging Sandstorm because he knows it's a losing fight. He can't jump in. And that's Mexico on a decisive Divine Judgment. Will get them the Lord here.
It was all of the resources used up. You could see it earlier. And now, look at that. They're still going to be able to utilize so much more Naisu here.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that the resources that they've used up, all the flickers, even the Purify used up there into that skirmish earlier. And like you said, good targeting. Solid stuff from Mexico. Is now they look to go for the siege here. Zoltra has Divine Judgment.
Oh, they're going to lock them down under this turret. Zoltra going to get punished alongside Kendo. What were they doing there? Colombia will punish a mistake from Mexico. All that for the tier 2. And this just pretty much negates this charge in with the Lord. Mexico with a big mistake.
Back and forth. Back to just a 1,000 gold lead despite the massive lead that Mexico had. And I gotta agree with you. What were they doing? The Lord was in the bottom lane. There's no real reason for them to dive that deep for a tier 2 because they will have more waves coming down. They really didn't need to rush that. You can already see though that the pressure is getting to both of them, right? Both making some crucial mistakes, but it makes for one hell of an entertaining game, that's for sure. Nice too. And at the 11th minute, it's still anyone's game to take. Despite the Lord, it's 2 turrets actually taken by Colombia. They got one on the bottom side. I thought they would take another one there, tier 1 up top, but they weren't able to get it done. And now it just comes back to both of the teams just scaling again, looking for angles and looking for skirmishes. Because for Colombia, they have basically equalized on the board at this point. 1,000 gold lead isn't much at this stage of the game. And for Mexico, that snowballing power, that mid-game power spike of theirs, I think they've hit a ceiling. When it comes to scaling too, I think Colombia definitely has a little bit of an edge there when it comes to scaling with the Julian and the carry compared to Mexico, who technically just have to rely on the Valentina in the later stage of the game, and Rakpid, I guess, on the Roger. It's Windtalker into an Endless Battle into a Malefic Roar build here. I'm not too sure what item he's going to build next in this build, but even for the Valentina, it's Bloodwing's first item now. Kendo is going to start falling off massively when it comes to damage, especially if Colombia can continuously just hide away from those Spear of Alphas. And yeah, Harry's actually scaling quite well. 12 minutes in, 33 items, going for the Malefic Roar too. So by the time we hit the 13-minute, when he gets that Malefic Roar, and especially if he gets that Wind of Nature, Mexico will definitely find it very, very hard to, get rid of it.
Man, look at the amount of damage too that Prime Marigod's been able to do on this Julian. A lot of that is just because Mexico's so bunched up that he just drops the enhanced chains and does a ton of damage that way. And of course, even with the enhanced swords. So very surprising that was a Malefic Roar also picked up. And online, there's the pull once again from Zoltra. They find Astro. They have the numbers advantage, but there's the return. Rack has to get out of their wild charge coming out from Abyss Cutie. Gonna lock them down into the Raging Sandstorm too. Kendo trying to run away, but he can't because he's blocked by the Guardian's Barrier. What a response from Colombia. Again, Zoltra goes in with the Divine Judgment, but they won't have it this time. And this could be their Lord to take Colombia with a decisive team fight, and now they force Mexico back on the defense.
Like I said, Mexico have hit a wall when it comes to scaling. And for Colombia, they're continuously just scaling with Replic and Prime Marigod here, hitting their item power spikes. Another big power spike with the Divine Glaive. The fact that you're already shredding, some of these frontliners with your Enhanced Scythe, with the Divine Glaive, you can do that even more. You basically deal true damage at this point, right? For Prime Marigod. And he's already on the turret, tier 2 down below. Now looking for the other turrets too. And I have to say, for Mexico, if I'm talking about their wave clear, it's not really that good, right? They don't really have that good wave clear. I'm offended. Used up onto Zoltra. Still gonna go for the turret here. Waiting for the Lord to march down bottom lane to scatter Mexico into that bottom lane so that they can actually look for more turrets. But I think at this point, they have to escort the Lord. They didn't really time the waves properly.
Yeah, they're gonna have to go with it. Oh, Lord, go ahead and charges in. I think they're going to hold on to this turret, though. So even for Colombia, they'll still possibly get another tier 2 if they can. I know the waves are pushing in, but Mexico can hold the line and hold it down. Good for Mexico. They don't lose too much off that Lord. Unless they force a fight once again. Astro does have the immortality, so going to be going forward. Conceal play going to be used. Zoltra on the run, though. They pull him with an I'm offended. A huge setup potential here. Can they turn the tide? Kendo looking for his own setup himself. Raging Sandstorm going to go in on the backside. Finds Pika. Finds the kill there. 4 are down. It's only Rack left alive as only Delica went down. And it looks like that's going to be it in 3 games. Colombia will do it. They'll take the win against Mexico, and they'll lock in their slot in Riyadh at the WEC.
We didn't quite get our 30-minute game, Naisu. We were just half the duration of what we expected, a 30-minute slugfest. But what we did end up with was indeed a slugfest, indeed an entertaining match back and forth all across the board, and it was the early game that Mexico held in their hands, in their grasp, but Colombia somehow, some way, pulling off these miracle plays, going for these team fights and forcing these engages in where they were able to actually out-execute them in these skirmishes. And in the very end, I think it was just a rare case of a team getting absolutely outscaled, right? Because the Julian, the carry, always free hitting. Also, I would say not just outscaled, but Mexico definitely picking some very sus targets, right? And I don't know if you want to blame it completely on Mexico, because for Colombia, that was the whole plan at the start. Why they had 2 roamers technically in the mid lane was the fact that they actually wanted to give more targets away for Zoltra. More targets for Zoltra to go for. If Zoltra didn't get Replic, if Zoltra didn't get Primary God, it was just not going to be a good fight for them. And in a lot of the skirmishes in the early game, they were able to find Replic. But in the later stage, when Replic was already able to get, the good peeling away from, the rest of the team, having the Ruby in your composition, having Abyss QT on this Grok too, it really led to them having so much peel, so much layers of CC, to a point where Mexico couldn't really handle that front-to-back composition. Yeah. And again, at the 9th minute, it was still really good for Mexico. Why? Because they had still the power spike, the window, all for them, right? It was all really, really good for them. The advantage was definitely still on their side. But then they made this one crucial mistake. Not staying patient, not staying composed after getting the Lord. And then here too, Zoltra went in onto Astro of all people. Definitely, the Roamer isn't, the right target to be going for with your Flicker, with your Divine Judgment, if everybody's there to follow it up. I think if it was the Ruby isolated completely and you already had vision on all the other members, that would have still been an okay pick to go for. But the fact that the other members were not visible on the map, going for it was just really risky. You knew for a fact that Ruby was definitely just opening up the map for the team. So the other 4 members could just be coming in, and without the Divine Judgment, without any tools to lock Replic down, Primary God down, you can see the damage for yourself. You can take a look at it here. Compared to Mexico's damage dealt, 62,000, 53,000. No one on Team Mexico were able to get close to those numbers, right? And that's why Colombia were very, very happy to just go for the double roam setup, and even the Khalid in the side lane, because as long as they were able to provide enough cover for Replic, provide enough cover for Primary God, they knew they had this game in the bag.
And when you look at this, it's just like, again, everything really working close together in terms of like the lineup. I mean, even the Khalid that, was a kind of a surprise pick. It's like, man, it worked really well with even the Wild Charge, for example, or the I'm Offended. And I feel like, Mexico just didn't pay attention enough to what possibly could have happened setup-wise, because obviously if Zoltra is going to grab someone, Colombia is going to do everything they can to throw any of those, options at Mexico. And a lot of times Akaja brings them to the team. So all you have to do is follow up through that, and you're going to find multiple members of Mexico. And, even sometimes they were just kind of overstepped in some of the choices that they made, even after getting the Lord, for example, getting punished like that. And, for our MVP, Primary God, he got to shine a lot of times by just simply dropping down in enhanced chains, like I said, and then following up later on with however he approached it, because the damage was great and you could see it, right? Amazing performance, tons of KDA here, 7, 3, and 10. He had all the items he needed to really be that big damage dealer for a lot of this. And even with the Winter's Crown, a little bit of additional defense, right, if he needed to. But even without a Winter's Crown, man, what makes Julian so good is the guy can escape from so many situations. He's so hard to catch and get rid of. So again, a great performance there. It was a great series, a great way to for us to end the qualifiers here for the American region, but just, the qualifiers as a whole. I'm glad we at least got to have this series go the distance here.
And it completes the storyline, right? Nice. So game 1, Colombia stomp, and then the adjustment from Mexico, and then Mexico stomp, and then the adjustment from Colombia. Maybe if only we got like a best of 5 instead of a best of 3, then we would see this back and forth all over again the whole time. But man, it's been an amazing regional qualifier here for America, right? We were able to cast for Asian regional qualifiers, and the very first one was the African regional qualifiers.
Yep.
And I think for me personally, this has got to be the most enjoyable one. We got to see a whole lot new, regions, new countries shine in the American regional qualifiers here, showing the world that, hey, they're here to play too. They're here to play MLBB, and they're here to be contenders, because who would have thought that Colombia will be making it towards the main event here? We're going to be seeing a new nation again represented at the WEC 24.
Can't wait, man. You know, it's been a heck of a time doing all these online qualifiers. Like I said, I know we didn't get to do the European one, but we'll eventually see the teams that secure that spot over in Riyadh as well. And it's been great. You know, we have like one more stop left, at least for the offline. Well, we've wrapped up all the online qualifiers, so can't wait to see, you know, exactly how they adjust, because again, there's quite a bit of time leading to that point, and we know that the meta will shift a little bit more, you know, from what we saw here today. But I love that all these teams, all these nations bring their own flavors, and we'll see what they bring to the table for Riyadh.
Yeah, this is the final day, ladies and gentlemen. That was the final match of all the online qualifiers. And, you know, for me and Naisu, we've been up for the last 4 days, up until 6 a.m. in our time zone, 7 a.m. for Naisu. But thank you, every single one of you guys, for watching as well. You guys are supporters of the teams that won or lost. You know, it's still an amazing show for every region or every nation in the American region of qualifiers. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been Miracle. It's been Naisu. And, well, I guess we'll see you guys in the offline stage.